We're going to wait a couple of minutes to let everyone, shuffle in when they might. If anyone else brings in, we'll let them in. But we usually wait till about 7:05 to start these things. And in the meanwhile, I will get my PowerPoint ready to go. Forgive me for using a PowerPoint. I don't want you to have any traumas. If you're used to them from work or school, they come in handy. We will be recording this, so just to let you know, you're on the record, and we'll be posting it on our website. And if you know anyone who missed it, you can send them to the website to see it, or you can ask us for a copy. We'll be happy to share it. We'll also be taking questions. You could put them in the chat as you think of them during the talk, and I'll try to answer them at the end, or you can just hop on the mic at the end and ask me your questions. I am more than happy to hear your voices, so you don't need to stay muted unless you have a dog or errant child in the background. All right, so we have a nice little group, and we're gonna get started. Welcome. This is my talk on the SHSAT. Let me find my PowerPoint. There we go. Oh, there's someone. Let me get the slideshow started. And here we are. This is a talk about the SHSAT. I'm sure you all have heard a lot about it. Some of it right, some of it wrong, some of it confusing. And I'm here to set you straight. I've been teaching the SHSAT among every other test for a very long time now. I'm not as young as I look, hopefully. And so I can say with authority that I know this test very well. I know it inside and out. We know what changes has been put in place and what changes have not. We've heard all the rumors, so anything you hear that anything that I don't say, ask about, and maybe it is a rumor, but maybe I just forgot to talk about it. What is it? Why do you take it? I'm also going to go through the structure and the scoring. We're going to talk about prepping or not to prep and some of the best ways to do it. And for those of you who don't know, I am Stuart Servitor, as you can see on the slide. ibidPREP is my company. We were on Broadway, right across from Zay Bars. We had a small pandemic or a large pandemic, just depending on your perspective on pandemics. So we closed that office during the pandemic, but we just reopened a new office. We're on 72nd Street above Tip Top Shoes, an iconic location for all Upper West Siders, and maybe even some Upper East Siders are aware of it. It's right near the 72nd Street Red Line hub. So we hope you'll come to classes there or in person or on remote. We give you a lot of options. We've been doing this as a company since 2007. And I've been doing it, like I said, since the 20th century. So we know a thing or two about how to prepare kids, not just for the SHSAT, but for all tests and really all academics. We try to make them better students and better doers, better processors, rather than just teaching them tricks, which really aren't tricks. So let's get going. One thing I have done since I formed the company is write these books called Remain Clam. The premise behind Remain Clam is that if you're not calm, words like clam just pass you by and you see them as calm because you're nervous to notice the words, or words flip and calm becomes clam in your eyes because you're so nervous that your wiring gets crossed up. So the whole philosophy behind Remain Clam and my company, ibidPREP, is that we teach poise. We teach people to become aware of when they might flip negatives and positives or X's and Y's, and choose what is true rather than what is not true, because their minds are not functioning at peak capacity because they're scared, nervous, anxious, or rushed. First question you want to ask yourself, obviously you're here, so you probably think the SHSAT is right for you, your student. But is it? What makes it right? Obviously, it's not just about Stuyvesant. There are 9 specialized high schools in New York City, 8 of which accept the SHSAT. Stuyvesant is obviously a terrific school, as is Bronx Science, as is HSMSE, as is HSAS, as in Brooklyn Tech. So there's a lot of them. It is a difficult test. It is depending on your school, it could be a year ahead in math, could be 2 years ahead in math. What we're seeing lately with the pandemic, it could be 3 years ahead in math. So we encourage students to take free diagnostics to find out roughly where they're located and roughly where they need to get in terms of their goals. If you're trying for Brooklyn Tech, you need one set of scores. If you need one Stuyvesant, you need another. We'll talk about that as we go along. It's not a test in the classic sense. So even though it's very difficult, you don't need to get an AA+ on it to get into a specialized school. You just need, in some degrees, to pass, because it's a curved test. One of those that your students will be experiencing from now on, whether they go on to PSATs or ACTs or SATs or even APs. It's scaled, it's not straight percentile. So they have to get used to not being perfect. Some of your students might be very obsessed with getting that high honor, high honors, or whatever is available at their school. And perfection is capable, is possible in schools these days, but on this test, it's not. So we need to recalibrate their mindset a little bit, because even Stuyvesant is maybe only about an 88% score to do well. What else makes the SHSAT right? Well, as most of you, as active, concerned parents and students, if there are students here, know, there is no certainty in the high school process, except for this test. Because if you get the score, you get in. It's as simple as that. Every other high school in New York City, not so clear. And since the pandemic, even less clear. So whatever else you're going for, whatever else you want or don't want, you have a little bit control. You have control over this process. Not a little bit, you have control. You do well and you get into a school. Everything else, all bets are off. So it's worth a shot for that. I'm trying to wake up my thing. Ah, there we go. But should you take it? Again, it's an opportunity to control your destiny. It's only a 3-hour test, which is not only, it's very long. It's weird that they adjusted the test a few years ago to make it more fair. And one of the things they did was make it longer. Go figure. It is free to take. Now you can take it in your school, so you don't have to go to Stuyvesant with 10,000 other kids and be terrified. You can take it in your school, and it's free, so it's fairly convenient. And lastly, nothing happens if you do poorly. I mean, except you don't get into a school, but you're not losing anything. It's not going to hurt, except maybe emotionally. But why not take it? If you absolutely know for certain it's not you don't want to go to specialized school. Although you should be sure what you know is a specialized school. You should understand what that means. Also, if your heart can't take it, if you're not up for it. But again, you're getting older, you want to mature. This is a great way to do it. It's hard. It's a hard age to have to face the test with these kind of consequences. But I'll tell you what, my middle school kids who deal with this test, who get through it, who survive, get to the SATs, it's a piece of cake. It's a lot easier. It's not a piece of cake, maybe a piece of pie, but it's a lot easier. So what is the SHSAT? Stuart, Stop yapping at us. Tell us about this test. It is 2 sections, verbal and math. You can take them in any order. Each section is not timed. You get 3 hours for the whole thing. You can take it as you wish. I tell everyone this, they come back to me, they take their class, we have the discussion again and again and again and again. I recommend you start with the verbal anyway. It comes first, because you don't want to leave out a whole passage at the end. At the math, you could do an extra problem, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but it's hard to do an entire passage at the end. But if you're more comfortable starting with the math, by all means, start with the math. We get kids who jump around, stand on their heads. I don't recommend any of that because it's kind of like kids driving a bus, and it's not often what you want kids to do. But anyway, we help them formulate a game plan that hopefully is rational. Hopefully they follow. The verbal section has 2 types of questions, actually 3. They have revising sentences, revising passages, which we call loosely just the grammar section, grammar and editing. And that's a small part of it. It's like 9 to 12 questions. And then the bulk of the reading, the verbal section, is reading comprehension. Very much like the reading you've seen on the state tests, except on a much higher level, much more detail, much more analysis that has to be done. So you have to pay attention to the reading. You have to dig in. There's also poetry. What better age to expose a child to poetry than 12, 13? Their minds are still kind of literal and they have no stamina or patience for poetry, except the occasional kid like myself who loved poetry. But I was weird and continued to be weird. So we help them with the poetry, we help them with the fiction, and then we hold their feet to the fire with the nonfiction with data, little charts and graphs, and just straight up boring nonfiction. Our goal is to get kids to read word for word, process as they read. We don't play games. We don't jump to the answers, jump to the question, jump to the reading. We read. Make sure we know what we're reading. We become aware when we're not reading, and then we read the questions. We come up with an answer for the questions, and then we look at the answers given, the answer choices. Why? Why do we hold them off from looking at the answer choices? Because most kids, and with the state tests or school tests, they just use the answers to figure out the answer. These answers, and all answers going forward on standardized tests, are not there to help you. Your teacher wants you to do well because your teacher's contract is dependent on that. Tests don't care. Standardized tests want to lose you, want to push you away, want to take the lazy reader, the reader that picks out the first few words that look like something they've read, and they want them to get it wrong. And we don't want your kid to be that. And you don't want your kid to be that. So that's what we teach them in the reading. It's our secret. It's our secret recipe, secret formula, secret trick. We teach them to read, which sounds like a joke, but it's not, because if any of you spend an hour at work and you write an email and you put in work and you edit it and you cross-check it and you email it out to whoever you're dealing with, and then they only read the first 3 words and completely ignore everything else you've read, you realize that fewer and fewer people actually read. So we try to get your kids reading because we think that's the greatest power that people will have going forward, being able to really read. And it implies to the math section. The math is a review of basic arithmetic and number concepts that they should have mastered in elementary school, that they probably forgot since elementary school. Pandemic certainly didn't help. Going into 7th grade and being handed a calculator didn't help, because there's no calculator on the SHSAT, and you don't want to lose your multiplication tables, and they do lose their multiplication tables. Then they add on top of that algebra, which they're all probably just learning now, and geometry, which probably none of them have learned. You get a little smattering in most schools of geometry right at the end of the semester when no one's paying attention and teachers are fried. So whatever geometry your kids have probably will not help them just yet. Geometry will give them will. Why do I know this? I know this because every year we administer hundreds of free diagnostic SHSATs, and there's like 10 questions of geometry on the math section, maybe a few more, maybe 12. If a kid gets 3 right, it's a lot. So don't worry too much about that. They'll pick it up. It's not that hard. That's the math section, which I kind of just went into. And yeah, so here's a further breakdown of what revising and editing means. It means knowing what a comma is for, which nobody does. Parts of speech. They ask you what's the appropriate pronoun. Yeah, I should know what a pronoun is. Then editing, it's knowing how sentences should connect one to the other in proper order, how paragraphs should connect. Good basic stuff. These are not, we all know tests are evil. We've been hearing it for the past 12 years, but are they really? Is it awful that your students should know what a subject and a verb are? I don't think so. But then again, this is my business, so why pay attention to me? Reading comprehension, we just discussed. Really want to make them better readers. And you should too, because it is one skill that will apply throughout life. And writers, but writing does not pertain to this in this test. Wish it did, because I love teaching it. Again, going back to the math, when we talk about foundational math and math topics, a lot of kids are like, this is easy. They associate it with elementary school. It might be simple, but it's never easy. You want to have an intimate in and out knowledge of math and long division and powerful control, command of your fractions, which everybody hates, which is why there's so many on the test. No, but fractions are also very useful tools, especially when you get to algebra. And we will fill them in on all that goodness. And lastly, the geometry, which we already spoken of, we will help them with that. It ain't going to be bad. It's not bad. And it'll help them get a leg up when they get to high school, which is the whole point of this exercise. The timing, as I mentioned before, you get 3 hours, 180 minutes. You can break it up however you want. Biggest issue is comfort with time. Every kid, the minute you could turn a clock on and it could say 4 days on it, but the minute it starts to run, kids feel that panic. A lot of us feel that panic. Most of what our job is urging them to remain calm and not panic, because you don't have to finish this test. Finishing does not get you points. Getting correct answers gets you points. And that seems to be a very rational statement. But I will spend the next 10 months or 11 months, whenever they give the test, we'll talk about that in a second, reminding kids, reminding parents, addressing the fact that it's okay they didn't finish. I'll tell you this story. It still won't impact anyone or stop them from worrying about timing. My son, my elder son, is the son who listens. And I told him, you don't have to finish, just get everything right that you can. And he crushed the verbal section, and he did very well on the math, but he's like, Dad, I ran out of time. I'm like, how many questions did you miss? He's like, I didn't get to like the last 8, so I just had to guess out. I'm like, that's okay. He broke 600, which is well above the Stuyvesant cutoff. He got into his first choice, which was not Stuyvesant. It was High School of American Studies. He graduated last year from University of Chicago, so it worked out well. But what do I know? What do I know? Don't worry about time. We will teach them how to be more efficient. We will find out when they're obsessing and they should just move on, but we're not going to worry about time until I say so. when you rank your specialized schools, now we get into the nuts and bolts, and it's different. It's not when you're trying to apply for private school, or you're trying to apply to get into kindergarten or whatever. You pick the school you like, not the school you think you have the best chance of getting into. No one's feelings will be hurt. It's all an algorithm. It's all computer based. If you get the score of your first choice, you get in. If not, they check your second choice. If you get that score, you get in. So if you put in Brooklyn Tech ahead of Stuyvesant, it doesn't matter if you got a perfect score on your test, you're not going to Stuyvesant. You're going to Brooklyn Tech because that was your first choice. So don't play around. If you have any hope to Stuyvesant, if you like Stuyvesant, put it first. That's the only way you'll, even if you have to get the right score for it. Actually, listen, and one kid who even on his practice test never came near Stuyvesant, on the day of the test, he just had a great day. And he went to Stuyvesant, and he was like, thank God you told me that. His mother would have said that. He didn't. Kids never write me back, occasionally. But the mom was very happy. And I hope, this can happen for you guys, but only if you want Stuyvesant. My younger son, who never listens to me, put in a school above the one he wanted just because he thought it was a good idea, and he got it, and he didn't want to go. So one son listens, one son doesn't. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Don't answer me. Yes. Rank them by preference, not expected outcome, because nobody knows. So how is the test scored? It's very simple. You get a raw score based on the number of correct answers. There is no penalty for guessing. You don't lose anything if you get an answer wrong. So if you're looking at a problem, it was on geometry and circles, and you forgot everything I ever taught you about circles, just put down a letter. And don't spend a nanosecond kids spend more time trying to outsmart the letters than they do learning the radius of a circle, or the formula for the area of a circle. And it's ridiculous. There's 4 answer choices on every question, except the grid-ins on the math. I forgot to mention that, didn't I? We'll mention that in a second. 4 choices, just pick a letter. You're not going to outsmart. You could pick the same letter for everyone. The second, it alternates. So you just pick the second letter and just go, and spend more time reading and thinking and doing math. So then your raw score is paired for each section. Each section is out of 400. So your total score might be 800. And I get parents occasionally like, my kids, he's not getting, very few students ever break 600. The scale goes like this, and right up the end, you get like 50, the 39th and 40th question you get right on like 50 more points each. So that's your only chance. Everything else is going to put you down 100 points at least. But anything in the high 500s is unbelievably good. Breaking 500 is very good. And the way to do this is to maximize your points in the section you're good in. I'm going to repeat that. You maximize the points in the section you're good in. Unlike most tests where we're looking for balance, on the SAT, you want your math and verbal scores kind of the same. So you show balance. Here, you just want to maximize points. So if you're good in math, you want to get excellent in math. And if you're okay in reading, but you're excellent in math, that's almost better than being pretty good in both. Doesn't mean we're going to neglect one in terms of the other, but it doesn't mean if like you're 5 wrong in math, we're going to just like leave it alone. No, we're going to squeeze for every last point in that section. And that's how we approach the SHSAT. What I meant to say before, all tests are, all questions are multiple choice except for the first 5 math choice questions. Those are grid-ins where you're bubbling in a number. Like you bubble in your name on the cover sheet of a test. For that, you bubble in a number. We'll teach them it's not a big deal, but it is not multiple choice. If you think the answer is 12, you have to bubble in 1, 2. You're not choosing 12. So you have to be really careful because there's no multiple choices to help you kind of like, oh, I got 48 and there's no 48 there. You know you're wrong. Here, you won't. It's only 5 questions though. At first, we even sometimes suggest that kids skip those because it freaks them out. But in the end, it's just all questions, and that's how we want them to think about it. When we talk about cutoffs against the 500 scale, these were the 2022 cutoffs, at least as far as have been reported, and we know the DOE never tells you nothing except your own score and what school you're in. So as you can see, the range of scores, it's not a huge differential. The percents do sweep up. Brooklyn Latin is the lowest, but it's a lovely school. I do a program with them every year on essay writing. Brooklyn Tech is massive, but it has everything. It's like a classic giant high school. SHSAT is terrific. As I mentioned, my older son went there. It starts off in AP US history in your 9th grade, and you go from there, and they don't play around with the humanities. It's terrific. HSMSC is kind of the same kind of thing, a small school on a college campus, but it's a stronger science base, and you learn German for some reason. Staten Island Tech, thank you. Nice typo, Stuart. Staten Island Tech is in Staten Island, so it probably doesn't pertain. I did go out there I went to one of their middle schools to try to give a course. It took me it was 2 hours of travel. So I don't think and in the car. So I don't think anybody wants that. No. See, this is what happens when I do things at the last minute. 532 should be Bronx Science, not HSMSC. Very famous school. Neil deGrasse Tyson went there. Tons of other wonderful, brilliant people came out of Bronx Science. It's a very product heavy kind of school, not necessarily process. A lot of driven kids trying to take 9 APs and all that. Same as Stuyvesant, but Stuyvesant's, Stuyvesant. It's got a newish building. It's a little more versatile in terms of its offerings, but both Bronx Science and Stuyvesant are the classic, great, specialized New York City high schools. Go on tours, talk to people, get to know them, see how you feel about them. If it's right for you, it's right. Let your kids drive the bus to a certain extent, but to a certain extent, remember they're very young and shouldn't be in charge of too many big decisions, but their input does count. And that's pretty much it. The question is then, what do you do if you want to take this test? If you want to go through it and get good at it, the first thing is to take a practice test. Like I said, you can go online to the DOE SHSAT handbook, pick one of those. If you're going to work with us, don't start diving into those handbooks too much, because we use those tests, and we don't want to have to, we can't give you 8 different tests every week. We do give online a remote self-administered version of the diagnostic. It's a little of some of our own content. If you do it through us, you do it online, just submit the scores online. The results are instantaneous. It breaks down what you got wrong, what you got right. So I think it's a very nice, organized way to do it. Online, we have timers for you. So I wholly recommend it, and it costs you nothing. Unbelievable. How do we do it? I don't know. So that's the first step. Take the test, see where you fall. There are guidance on your results will tell you. Usually we say if you're within 50 points of striking distance, go for it. Even within 100, it's worth a shot, but it might be some heavy lifting involved. Keep in mind when your kids take this test that they're 12 years old. Cause and effect is not a big deal. Not their strong suit, so they might not be doing their best on the test. They might be freaking out. Sometimes getting kids to sit down and execute any kind of instructions correctly, that's a huge step. So we try not to count too many kids out, but we also try to be honest with you if it will be a very difficult thing for them or not. We want the process to be positive. You should too. Keeping in mind the cause and effect, teaching them, that this is important and that it's worth a try. will only achieve if you try. You know, underachievers like to say, well, if I tried, I would have, but you never know unless you do try. So we want to encourage that by all means. Then you've taken a test, you're within striking distance. What can you do? You can just take practice tests on your own. We offer them in person, remote, or self-administered. We proctor remotely. We do in-person tests, and then again, you can just have them to do online on your own. We're happy to. We have students do just, they're like, screw you, Stu, I don't need you. Just give me a lot of tests. We give them tests. You can also buy my book, which is brilliant. If I do say so myself. No, it's very good. It has all the exercises, all the approaches you need to all the material and test, and a lot of practice. And like except coming this spring, my own, I'm going to record classes pretty much sitting like this, sharing the screen, giving you various input, through my book, which you'll get, and tests, which you'll get, all as a part of the program, but it'll be recorded. If you do prefer to take a course, we offer, we're just starting in next October, January 29th, which is a Sunday, is a remote version of it, and Wednesday, February 1st is our SHSAT Plus class, which will start now and go through the test or the end of October, basically. That's our first offerings. If we're as soon as you hang up today, you'll be probably getting an email. We're extending our discount on that class, $100 off. We'd love to have kids join that class. It's our first return to in-person classes for the in-person version of it. We're also offering spring and fall class. Those traditionally start mid-April, right after the state tests, although those state tests don't matter as much anymore. We still like to wait. They run through the spring to the end of school. We give kids some work over the summer to be nudged about. And then the class resumes in earnest in the fall. You can also just take our summer intensive, 2 weeks, every day, 3 hours. We run through the whole syllabus. And lastly, there's the SHSAT fall intensive. For those who like to wait for the last minute, we do a twice-a-week class in the fall. And lastly, of course, we do in-person. We'll be doing in-person in our offices or your home, and of course, to your schedule and pace. So that's obviously the advantage for in-person. You can start anytime you want. We have great tutors, some of whom are only remote, many of whom are in-person and or remote. That's your choice. It's whatever works best for you, and we can start anytime. That is basically that. Here's a list of our classes. All that is on our website. The PT and the PR, it depends if you want to, the T's at the end mean if you want to take the test in person, it's a little more, or if you want to take it remote Zoom, that's part of the class fee. All classes come with our book. All classes come with access to our library. And all classes come with me somewhere lurking in the background. I've trained all our tutors. Most of our tutors have been with us 5-6 years because I'm a great boss. And we stay on top of things, and we've had very good success. How do I know? We're still here. We've had generations of kids, siblings after siblings after siblings. We have a great acceptance ratio, and we'd love to help your student become accepted. And that's it. Remain calm, take it easy. I'm accepting all questions now in the chat, and or you could just hop in on voice if you'd like to speak. If not, you can send me an email, call, whatever you like. Any questions, anybody? What a polite bunch. No questions. All right, then. I think this is a first. I don't know that I've ever had no questions. Well, thank you all for hopping on. I look forward to seeing your names. Have not seen any faces, but I'll see your names, I hope, in emails if you have any questions that way. Look for your informational email shortly after this. And good luck with the SHSAT. Take care, everybody. Thank you.